how I married my ex-boyfriend. In this video, I am going to tell you guys the raw, real, vulnerable, full story of how I got my ex back and married him. This video has been requested so much, and I've been wanting to do this for such a long time. What was holding me back is that I realized that I can't just tell the story in a vacuum. In order to understand how I was able to get myself to a place where I could have a healthy relationship for pretty much the first time in my entire life, you need to know a little bit more about me. You need to know more about my past, about some of my past relationships, and it all has to be taken in context. Even though it is a little bit difficult for me to be so open about some of this stuff, I am going out on this emotional limb because I know that so many of you are going to relate to my story, relate to the stories that I'm going to tell in this video. And I know it's probably going to be really helpful to a lot of you. And I'm hoping that it inspires you because things did end up working out for me in a way that I never imagined that they would or that they could. And so I hope this story can give hope to other people who might be struggling in their relationships, because as you're going to learn, I struggled a lot. Okay, so let's get into it. When I was younger, I don't want to say that I was unattractive because that's not true, but I was an undesirable. In looking back, that's the way I describe myself because that's what I was considered to be by my peers. And I really realized this around the age of like 10. I feel like when guys and girls are really starting to discover each other, and I was just the one who was never wanted. And there's a variety of reasons why this was. I think I always looked a lot older than I was. I was much taller than everyone else, whatever. I felt like a big, fat, disgusting monster. And that is the story that was told to me, especially by all the boys in my class. Now, I was always popular. I was always in the popular clique. So all of my friends were the prettiest girls in school, the ones that all the guys wanted to date. And I was just always, I was not a threat at all to them. I was just always the supportive, nice friend who was there, always helping them with their drama and whatever it was that was going on in their lives. Now, due to the way I was treated, I was pretty annihilated for my appearance. It was awful. And a lot of other factors. I developed an eating disorder around the age of 12 that went on until I was 17. So it fluctuated in terms of severity. I was mostly bulimic, but there were, shots of anorexia mixed in there. And I remember this is just one example of like all the horrible things that I went through in terms of how people treated me. There were rumors about me having an eating disorder, and this guy that I had a huge crush on, I found out that he had said, "What? She has an eating disorder? That doesn't make sense. She's so fat." So things like that would happen a lot. And as you can imagine, is extremely difficult to deal with. When I was 17, it got so bad that I ended up being hospitalized for a month. At this point, I was more on the anorexic side of things. I don't need to get into the whole eating disorder history because that could be like a whole novel unto itself. Anyway, I'm giving you this context because part A, our childhood traumas pretty much set the foundation for how we behave in adulthood and in our adult relationships. And part B, it's because a month and a half after I got out of the hospital is when I met the man who would become my husband. So I'm giving you that background just so you know the psychological state that I was in. So before going into the hospital, I was very inexperienced with boys because like I said, it was complete undesirable. I'd only kissed one guy in my entire life, and we were at a party. I was 16. This guy's sitting next to me on the couch, doesn't even ask for my name, just starts making out with me. And the only reason I did it was because all of my friends were having all these experiences with guys, and I was just always the one who was sitting there listening to them, and I was giving great advice. Who cares? I didn't have any experience of my own. I was still really good at advice even back then. And I wanted to be the one to share something for once. So I was like, fine, I'll make out with this no-name guy, whatever. So that's the unfortunate story of my first kiss. So that was the extent of my experience with men. Now, when I got out of the hospital, a very funny thing happened. All of a sudden, I went from this little miss, invisible, undesirable to the most desirable girl in all the land. The shift was so sudden that I was like knocked sideways. And at this point in time, when you're just figuring yourself out and your identity, I was just like, what? But you guys have been telling me one thing all along, but now I'm the hot girl? That's what you're telling me? Like, that's what all of this means? All this male attention that was suddenly just coming my way. It was crazy. Honestly, was surreal. I felt like I was living in some kind of dream. So I got out of the hospital in March, and it was in June. I went to this party and I meet a guy, and we're talking and we're flirting, and we end up making out for like 3 hours straight. And this is so cheesy, but I felt this like electricity running through my body. And I thought, oh, maybe this is just what it feels like when you make out with a boy, because I was so inexperienced at that point. After that, I made out with plenty more boys. There have been plenty more boys in the picture, and I never ever felt that again. So I had this feeling, and I didn't know that this boy would eventually become my husband. So I meet this guy at the party. He got my number, and I thought, oh, we're gonna be boyfriend, girlfriend, because that's just how it goes. We met, we clicked, we made out, and now we're gonna be boyfriend, girlfriend. But I didn't hear from him. He didn't call me. Obviously, I was upset about this. I was confused about this, but time went on, and I was very distracted by all the male attention that I was getting at this point in time. And I was addicted to it. It was really addicting. After being told for so many years that I'm ugly and I'm fat and I'm gross, all of a sudden I'm getting told that I'm like so hot and so desirable. It was just wild. And I mean, I was living for it. I loved it. At the same time, I still didn't believe it. I still felt like that other girl, the pre-hospital girl. By that summer, I was definitely not so innocent anymore. Definitely gained a lot more experiences. Then in that fall of my senior year, my friend's boyfriend's mom was a caterer, and she was looking for some waiters and waitresses to help out at events on weekends. And my friend's boyfriend was good friends with my husband, or at that point in time, I thought of him as the guy that I met at the party who never called me. And so she asked me if I wanted to help out with this catering business. I was like, yeah, I'm going. I'm going to make this guy rue the day that he decided to get my number and not call me. So I remember the way that I played this, honestly, I was 17 years old at the time, but this is the advice that I would give to anybody who's gonna run into a guy who ghosted them or an ex or whatever. I was like, I'm gonna look really hot and I'm gonna be super cold to him. So I looked really hot in my little caterer outfit, my tight white button-up shirt and black skinny jeans. And I remember I was going to put napkins on a table across the room, and I'm walking and I feel his eyes on me walking, but I'm not even looking at him. I'm just looking straight ahead, and he's staring and staring, and he goes, he looks at me and he's like, oh, hey, what's up? How are you? And I'm like, oh, I'm good. And I smile at him, put the napkins down, and walk away. And I walked to my friend and I was like, he's gonna want me now. I know it. And he did. Finally, he had my number for 4 months, but after this, he decided to start using it. So we started talking every day, texting every day. So he was a year older than me, so he was a freshman in college, but his college was 45 minutes away from me. So we were still able to see each other. And we would hang out, not super often because he was at school, but I would see him at the catering job. I would see him on weekends, and I really liked him. I mean, this one hit me super hard. Every day, I just looked forward to talking to him. Things would happen and I just wanted to tell him about it. And he was so different from all the other guys at this point. And there were so many guys at this point in my life, my goodness. None of them cared about me. None of them tried to talk to me. They just wanted to use me. And I was fine with that at that point in time, because I was like, oh, that means I'm hot. That means I'm hot. Okay, great. Use me. Take advantage of me. Yeah, I'm down for it. But with him, it was different. It seemed like he really liked me, and I just really liked him so much. But I mean, our relationship, I call him an ex-boyfriend, but he was never technically my boyfriend. We just had this ongoing thing for a few months, but I mean, I was messing around with other guys on the side. I'm sure he was doing the same. But then I realized I don't want any of these other guys. I only want him. So I decided I'm going to say something. I want to be his official girlfriend, and I'm going to bring it up and we're going to talk about it. So I had the whole tribunal with my girlfriends about how I was going to do it, what I was going to say. And so one day after, he came over to my house, we were hanging out, and I was like, so what are we? And he just kind of went white, and he was like, I don't know, we're hanging out. And I was like, obviously I was disappointed, but I was like, okay, we're hanging out. I was upset, but I just wanted him in my life, so I didn't care. Fine, if we're just hanging out, okay, I'll take it. I'm fine with that. But I didn't hear from him again after that. He just went silent, and I was distraught. Oh, awful. So weeks went by. Silence. I don't hear anything from him. And then I found out from someone that he was telling people that he never liked me and he was just using me. That one hurt. That one cut deep. It really did. And looking back, I know that it wasn't true. I mean, and also, first of all, I just want to say, I know he sounds pretty awful right now, but he was 18 at the time. So I'm just, keeping that in context, because I don't want this to be a video bashing him. This was a very, very long time ago. So yeah, so I found that out. And obviously I didn't have the perspective at the time to realize, oh, he was just saying that because that's something that guys do, or he was trying to save face because I didn't have the best reputation at the time. That really did something very bad to me and put me on a very bad path. And it's so ironic in looking back that the end of my relationship with him sent me on this spiral towards so many toxic relationships and toxic behaviors that came after. But that led to the redemption, and that led to me improving myself, which ultimately led me back to him and to us getting married. But you'll find out all about that, so keep watching. Gosh, I hope this video is not going to be 5 hours long, but we'll continue. So when I found out that he had said that, I did confront him. I called him out on it, and I was like, how could you do this? Like, how could you do this to me? And he was like, well, and he's like, why? And first of all, he denied that he ever said that, so who knows if he did or if he didn't. And right now, he has no idea. Like, he has a horrible memory. He has no idea, and this was such a long time ago. And the relationship was clearly much more significant to me than it was to him back then. So anyway, he was like, you know, you asked me, what are we? And obviously you want to be serious, and why do girls always do this? Why do they always want things to be so serious? And I was like, no, but it's okay. Like, if you just want to hang out, I'm fine with it. Let's just keep hanging out. He was like, no, it's done. And it was done. That was it. And at this point in time, I was interning at Us Weekly magazine. My high school had an internship program for second semester seniors. So I just by dumb luck ended up interning there, which is the coolest experience of my life. And I just remember every day taking the train into the city and taking the train home and replaying every detail of my interaction with him over and over and over, to the point that to this day, I can like quote him conversations that he and I had verbatim, and he thinks that it's insane. He thinks it just means I have a photographic memory, but it doesn't. It's just because I replayed it so many times in my head that I could just remember every detail of our relationship. So after him, I dated this guy named Adam, who was a dumpster fire of a human being. Just awful. He was really hot, and I was always into the hot ones because then that meant that I wasn't that ugly duckling anymore. Like, the hot ones just validated me. They just were a means to an end, because if these hot guys wanted me, then that meant I wasn't that girl anymore. And I just never wanted to be that sad girl ever again. But he treated me like garbage, and I allowed it. Like, I knew I was being treated like garbage, and I stayed. Honestly, like with my husband, I remember every detail with crystal clear clarity. With Adam, I blocked it all out because he was just so awful. So he was a raging narcissist, terrible to me. We would break up and get back together. We'd break up and get back together. And then one of the final breakups was like, he was cheating on me with this girl. And I found out by her texting me like from his phone, like, you and Adam are done. Love, Jess. And he was just a mess. And that went on for a while. I feel like he would keep coming back and going away. So I was already in a pretty psychologically fragile state before him, and he was just the nail in the coffin. I finished with him right before I went off to college, and college was a mess. I mean, college was a great time, but it was also a mess. In the first 2 years of college, I mean, obviously I partied hard because that's like what you do. And there was tons of boys, always boys, boys, boys. And it was the same pattern that would continue until my adulthood, which was either just being completely disinterested, aloof, cold. The guys who were nice to me, I was just like disgusted by, and the guys that treated me poorly, I was like, yes, I need you. I want you. This is my soulmate. There's one particular guy like this. I'll call him James. I really liked him, and he seemed to like me at first, but with guys like that, with the ones where I couldn't really tell, where they were emotionally unavailable, where I could tell that they didn't like me as much as I liked them, that's when I would forcefully latch on. It was really feeding my ego. Anyway, I don't need to like get into a whole psychoanalysis on myself. We'll do more of that later. But with him, I'm just using him as an example for a lot of the types of guys that I would go for. I mean, one time I was supposed to be going to a party at his frat house, and he called me that day and was like, I just want to let you know that this girl that I really like is coming to the party tonight. So if I like don't talk to you, that's the reason why. And any self-respecting girl would not have gone to the party, but I still went. And I ended up like lashing out at him and just, some of my behavior, goodness gracious. My junior year, I remember the first week I told my roommate, you know, I want a boyfriend this year. This is gonna be the year that I get a boyfriend. And a few weeks later, I met Eric Charles. Now, I'm not gonna go super into my relationship with Eric because that's literally a novel onto itself. I've written a lot about him. The only thing I'm gonna say about that relationship now are just offering a little bit of new perspectives, because the way I wrote about it in the past isn't really the way I feel about it now. I think in the past, I blamed a lot of the things that happened completely on him. And in looking back, and I'm not saying that he was innocent, but in looking back, I really see a lot of areas where I was also to blame, because once again, he was a guy that clearly couldn't give me what I wanted. And he told me that. He couldn't have been more clear in that. He said to me, I do not want a relationship right now. I just got out of a relationship. I just had my heart broken. I don't want that. If you want to stay, that's great. You're fun. I really like you. And that's awesome. But I'm not going to give you a relationship. And he literally spelled it out just like that. And I was like, okay, I'm fine with that. But I wasn't fine with that. I just wanted him to love me. Like, I really cared about him. And so I stayed and I tried and tried and I tried to be so amazing. And I tried to help him. I tried to love him back to life, because I was this starved little puppy who just wanted to be loved. And I thought that if I could heal him, then he would love me forever. And a lot of us do this. We don't consciously do it. It took me like many, many years after that relationship to realize what it was that I was doing. It was not a healthy relationship. It was a very codependent relationship. It was two people who had no business being in a relationship, just kind of hiding from their brokenness by spending a lot of time together and enjoying each other's company and not really dealing with the things that they needed to deal with in their lives. So that relationship ended in disaster. I was completely devastated. I mean, devastated. And I didn't deal with it properly. I just shut my emotions off. I mean, for a while I was an emotional mess, but then I was like, no more. And I was just numb. And I remember my senior year of college, I was a self-proclaimed man eater. My mission was just to like meet guys, make them ache for me, and just, walk away. Just make them want me. I didn't even need to like get past that. I just wanted them to ache for me, and then I was done with them. I was very cold. I was very heartless. I had no emotions towards anyone. But it's funny because that's how I was most of the time. But then a guy would come along who kind of reminded me of one of the guys from my past who burned me. And that's what we do. We seek out these relationships to kind of rectify the pains from the past. So I kept dating the same kind of guy, and it kept going the same kind of way. That was my pattern there. I graduated. I moved to New York City. I started working as a fashion and beauty editor. My life was really cool, really glamorous. I was going to Fashion Week. I was interviewing all these celebrities. I had amazing friends. I was having a lot of fun. And there was like a revolving door of guys at that time. I had a boyfriend at some point, but I didn't like him at all. Like, this is just how all the boyfriends that I had, I just didn't like. It was only the guys who never were my boyfriend that I was just completely obsessed with. Then there was one guy that came along named Kurt, and I really liked him. I've talked about him a lot because some of my stories from my relationship with him are just so funny, but so illustrative of larger relationship issues. Like, he's the guy that ghosted me and then called me by accident, thinking I was the new girl that he was seeing. So after my relationship with him, the reason I'm bringing him up is because he led to a big turning point for me. Because at the time of when that relationship ended, my roommate was a guy. He was subletting my roommate's room. And I remember just feeling so confused and so devastated after that relationship. And him and his friends one night just sat me down and they were like, okay, just tell us everything about the relationship. We're going to break it down for you piece by piece. You're not going to have any questions, and then you're not allowed to talk about this anymore. And so I broke it all down and they explained everything to me. And I just felt so clear and empowered after that. And that night I was like, this is what the world needs. Women need to understand how men operate from men themselves. And that was when I had the idea to create a site like A New Mode, but it didn't really happen until I think 2 years later. 2 years later, I think it was 2 years later, or maybe 1 year later, is when Eric and I got back in touch. I think I had reached out to him because I needed more closure. I kind of wanted him back. We didn't end up getting back together, but we did end up creating A New Mode. So we were working on A New Mode. In the beginning, it started out as a fashion beauty site. Then it evolved to be more about relationships. It was doing really well from the beginning. I was also freelancing. I was working at some other jobs. So around this time, it was maybe within the first 2 years of starting A New Mode, my parents were throwing this charity event, and I was in the bathroom and I opened the door, and standing in front of me is my high school ex. I went weak in the knees. I mean, I felt like I was gonna faint. And he looks at me and he's like, what are you doing here? And I'm like, I live here. What are you doing here? And he was like, oh yeah, I thought this house looked familiar. And it turned out that his cousin and her husband are actually friends with my parents and live in the same town. And that's why they were coming to this thing. And then he ended up coming. And the whole time that he was there, like in my house, I couldn't even speak to him. Like, I would just move to a different room and we would just be locking eyes, but I couldn't even talk. I was like violently shaking. It was crazy. It was that night or the next night, he messaged me on Facebook. We talked for like 3 hours and he basically apologized for everything that had went on in the past. It was like his mea culpa, but without coming out and saying, oh, I'm really sorry for what I did 5 years ago. He was just talking about how he used to be a really selfish person and he didn't really think about other people's feelings. And I was just kind of like, yeah, but I didn't really say that. So we were talking and he seemed like he was in such a great place and I was in a good place. And I was like, okay, we're going to get back together. Obviously, like that's what's going to happen. But I didn't hear from him again after that at all. For like a year. He completely faded into the abyss. At this point in time, I got really into self-development. I ended up traveling a lot and living abroad for a while. I went on a hiatus that lasted for a year. No dating guys, no even really talking to guys. I was just focused completely on myself. And I'm not saying, I know I tell you guys to work on yourself. I'm not saying like be this extreme. I just had a lot of things that I needed to work through. I spent a lot of time writing. That's when I wrote my first book. I spent a lot of time researching relationships. Really what I wanted was to be amazing at my career, and I didn't want any more distractions. I wanted to understand the psychology of relationships and dynamics from inside and out. And I started working with an amazing therapist who really helped things shift for me in a dramatic way, because I think, especially after like this series of relationships that had happened where I was just treated so poorly, but not just, I don't want to make it seem like I was the victim, because I saw what was happening and I allowed it to happen because I think I thought that I deserved to be treated that way. So a lot of faulty wiring about myself really got set in. These feelings of I'm not good enough, I'm not worthy, I'm never gonna have a relationship that I want. I'm always just gonna be chasing. That's what it felt like. My relationships at that point, it was either I was dating a guy and I didn't like him at all, even though he was perfectly nice and treated me great, or I was just chasing after these emotionally unavailable guys who just treated me like garbage and like going back for more. So I really wanted to get to the heart of that. At some point during this time, halfway across the world, who do I run into? The ex from high school. Crazy. I mean, every time I tell this story, I realize how nuts it is. So I spotted him and I had this feeling that came over me that said, I'm going to marry this guy. He's my husband. I know that he is. So we talk and we catch up and whatever. And then he messaged me on Facebook the next day and I thought, okay, he's going to ask me out. Like we're going to go out for a drink or something. But nothing happened. Like we would talk a little bit here and there and then it just fizzled out. And then I didn't hear from him for a really long time. Gosh, what happened this time? I think it was about another year, maybe less than that. Maybe it was 7 months later. I was back home and so was he, and we ran into each other in my hometown totally randomly. But this time it wasn't super flirty. Like all the other times, the chemistry was palpable. And that's why I was so confused as to why he wasn't like asking me out or doing anything about it. And for those of you wondering like what was going on in his head, I'm going to tell you all about that at the end. So don't worry, that part's coming. Right now we're talking about my perspective, but then I'll shift it to his perspective. There was no chemistry and I was like, all right, I guess he just doesn't like me. Like, I guess this is just done. It really turned out that he had a girlfriend at that time. So that's why the chemistry was off and he wasn't flirty with me. But I didn't know it at the time. At the time, I was like, I'm done with this. Every time I see this kid, I get my hopes up and then nothing ever comes of it. So I'm just done. I'm done. I'm not even thinking about it anymore. After that is when I started dating Kevin the Damage Case. Now, for those of you who have been reading my content for a while, you know all about him because I've written about him a lot. I'm actually going to do a whole other video on Kevin the Damage Case because that is really about getting over emotionally unavailable men. He was the final straw for me. He was the final straw that broke the camel's back in terms of me getting over these kinds of relationships so that I could finally have a healthy relationship. I'll talk about it a little bit here because it is important in terms of how me and my ex finally got back together. And don't worry that we are getting to that part. Basically with him is he was a classic case of a guy who doesn't want to commit. And when I started dating him, we had a lot of mutual friends. We went on 2 dates and then he ended it with me. But even before I went on a date with him, everyone told me he can't commit. He finds something wrong with everyone. And of course that like perked my little ears right up. And I was like, oh, he can't commit. All right, I'm going to be the woman to love him back to life because that's my MO. And even though I had done so much work on myself, I worked on this. I thought that I'd kick this problem to the curb. That's how it goes with self-development. It's not a straight line and there is no end point. You have the breakthroughs and have the epiphanies and get to a really strong place. And then you're going to slip up. And Kevin was a really big slip up for me. And it really was sad because at that point I was so successful. I had written best-selling books on relationships. I had a website with a massive audience. Like I was giving people really valuable advice that was changing their love lives. I mean, my readers were coming to me telling me, I have an amazing relationship now for the first time. It's because of you. And I felt like such a fraud because I'm still chasing the damage cases while I'm giving advice to people that's leading them to get the relationships they want. If I had taken my own advice, I just would have been much better off. Kevin and I, not his real name, we went on 2 dates, he broke up with me. And then it was a whole year of basically like, we'd run into each other. My run-ins with him weren't as crazy as my run-ins with the ex because he and I lived 2 blocks away from each other and had a lot of mutual friends. So we'd run into each other, we would flirt, we'd hook up. And then I would get all excited thinking that we were gonna like get back together because I was really upset that he dumped me after 2 dates. And then I wouldn't hear from him for months. And then we'd see each other again and the same thing would happen. And finally, I hit this point of what the hell am I doing? Why am I doing this to myself? Why? What has this guy given to me? What? I give him everything. My time, my attention, my body, my love. I mean, we weren't like in love, but like I really, really cared about him. I really wanted to help him. And he gave me nothing. And why did I stay? And I realized through him that I was still that 12-year-old girl who was home alone on a Saturday night when all her friends were at the movies with their boyfriends. I was still that girl who was voted ugliest girl in 7th grade. So I was going after the hot guys because the hot guys were the validating ones. They meant that I wasn't that undesirable girl anymore, but I didn't really believe I could ever have the relationship that I wanted. So I was going after the hot ones who were emotionally unavailable because the subconscious mind is always looking to prove itself right. And this is something I talk about a lot. Because if you have beliefs about yourself, your subconscious mind, and they're not active beliefs, they're in your subconscious mind, your subconscious wants to validate that. So you are going to get into situations that prove what you already feel about yourself. If you feel unworthy, you're going to go after guys who treat you like you're unworthy or who are going to treat you badly. And that's what I was doing. And I finally saw it for what it was. Also, with guys like that, you get so caught up in their drama that you don't have to think about yourself anymore. You don't think about your life and what you need to fix. You're so focused on fixing him. And you think that once you fix him and he can love you the way that you want, then that's going to make your life better and it's going to make all your problems go away. Another reason we're drawn to them is because there was like a darkness in him that I related to, because I certainly had a lot of darkness in me and we connected on that level. And it felt nice to have that connection, even though we didn't have anything. We didn't have a real relationship. So I had all these breakthroughs, all these revelations. It was becoming so crystal clear to me. And as soon as that happened, guys like Kevin lost all appeal. And I realized I am worth so much more than this. And I'm not doing this anymore. I'm done. So all the revelations started around June. And at some point in July, I was in Central Park with my friend. She was walking her dog. And who do I see? I saw him, the ex. The husband, whatever we want to call him. And he was talking to this girl who I went to high school with. So I was like to my friend, and she like just wanted to get out of there. She was, upset over some guy drama. And I was like, we got to go say hi to him. I only see him like once every few years. Like I have to go say hi. So I walk up to him, but I like pretended I was saying hi to the girl from high school. And I was like, oh, hey, how are you? So we talked for a little, same old, flirty, flirty, blah, blah, blah. After that, I was like, I think I'm going to hear from him, but I didn't. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to message him. So I messaged him. We talked for a little. I opened the door wide for him to ask me out and he didn't. So I was like, okay, forget this. Again, I'm going to forget this again. Because every time with this kid, we see each other, we connect. Like, why isn't he asking me out? Forgot about it. The rest of the summer was amazing. I really was on top of my game on every level. My career was going great. I had great friends. I was having fun. I wasn't really dating and I didn't really have a problem with that. I was just happy. I was in such an awesome place in my life. The end of the summer, I went to Italy. And when I was there, I noticed that Mr. High School X was liking a lot of my posts on social media, which he had never done before. And I told my friend on the trip, I'm like, okay, it's happening. When I get back to town, not the day I get back, like 2 days later, he's gonna message me and he's gonna ask me out. And she was like, all right, Sabrina, like, come on, delusion. So we got back to town on a Wednesday and on Friday, he messaged me and he did ask me out. And the day of our first date, I was so nervous. Oh my God, I could not even walk in a straight line. It was crazy. I was just, I was like shaking the entire day. It was awful. So our first date was 7 hours long and I didn't want to get too excited about it. I didn't even know if we were on a date until the end when he kissed me. Honestly, the entire time I was like, are we just two friends from back in the day catching up? Or does this guy actually like me? Are we actually on a date? I have no freaking clue. I'm not even gonna guess with him anymore. So it was very clear that we were dating. I mean, after that, like we're going on regular dates, but I continued to keep my options open. I wasn't dating other guys. I was talking to other guys. Like there were a few guys on the back burner and I just kept my options open. But very early on, he called me his girlfriend. We said, I love you, like within 2 months. And it was so clear and obvious from the beginning that this was it. And honestly, he fell in love even faster than I did. And this is what often happens with guys. When it's the right time and it's the right girl, it happens so quickly for them. Ask any guy who's married when he knew his wife was the one, and he's gonna tell you like on the second date. Women are more like, oh, on like the 6th date. Men know right away. So what changed? Why did he want to ask me out again? Obviously, I asked him and he was like, I don't know. It's just a feeling that I had. That was all I could really get out of him. That's his answer. I have my own theory. I mean, honestly, I think that it was me. It was the changes that I had made. I was finally in a healthy place emotionally. Nothing else had really changed about me. Granted, circumstances had changed. Like, we were both single. We were both living in the city. So things like that. But we had run into each other earlier that summer as well. I feel like it wasn't until my transformation was really complete. By the time he and I started dating, I remember telling people, I feel like I've come as far as I can go as a single person. I've done all the work on myself that I can possibly do. Any more personal growth is gonna come from a relationship. And it did, because love brings up all that is unloved within us. When you are in a serious relationship, that's gonna bring all your garbage up to the surface. And even though I have processed a lot of it as a single girl, I mean, in my relationship, it doesn't just go away because you're in a relationship. Love is not a cure-all. It is not a cure for all your past hurts and your past pain. And it certainly didn't cure all my past pain. I mean, there were definitely times in my relationship where I was so untrusting because he would say things to me like, I love you, I'm not going anywhere. But I'm like, okay, but other people have told me that and they left. Like, why should I believe you? And I realized in time, and not just realized, I mean, he was very, very patient and loving and understanding with where I was coming from. And he was like, look, if this relationship doesn't work out, it's gonna be because we both gave it our all and it didn't work out. And that's that. I realized that when a man really loves you, it's gonna take a hell of a lot to talk him out of it. It really will. It's the guys that are just unsure of you or like you a little bit or not sure how they feel. They're the ones that can easily be talked out of a relationship with you. A guy who loves you can't. So I didn't just let him be the source of my validation. I couldn't, because I knew that that would be the way to absolutely ruin this relationship. I really was aware of what was going on within me. I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of journaling. I did a lot of talking with, therapists or people who know a lot about this. And I identified where I was coming from. And that allowed me to really work through it. And that allowed me to be in a healthy relationship, because this was the one time where I liked someone or I loved someone and they actually loved me back. My relationships had never been like that before. And I really, really believed that I would never have that, because up until then, my two most significant relationships were with guys who wouldn't even call me their girlfriend. I mean, other guys had called me girlfriend before, but I didn't like them, or they were dumpster fires like that Adam, None of that was significant to me, so I just kind of felt like I was never gonna have it. So once I really did the work on myself, that's when it all shifted. So there are a few important takeaways here. One is that timing is so important, especially for men. When a guy decides he wants to settle down, then it happens quickly. You don't have to back him into a corner to get him to commit to you. Also, obviously, I'm sure you picked up on this by now, it is so important to work on yourself, to keep working on yourself. And finally, it is so important to pick a good guy. My husband is such a good man. He's such a good dad. He is a good guy. And when I look back at all those damage cases, I realize how miserable I would have been with them. 95% of relationship success is who you choose. It's so important to choose wisely. And that is something I really wish I knew when I was younger. Oh, and another thing I forgot to mention about my husband's mindset during all of these run-ins that we had, and this is a direct quote from him. He said, I just saw you as a girl who I dated in the past. It didn't work out. And what else was there to think about? You weren't even on my radar as someone to date. And this is very typical of guys who, after a breakup, so this is one, if you are trying to get your ex back, this is probably one hurdle you'll face, is guys are very matter-of-fact about things, whereas women will look at the potential of something. And obviously for all those years, I saw the potential of what could be with him. That's why I would always get so excited every time I saw him and think this would be the start of something new again. But in his mind, he was like, no, we've been there, we've done that. So women can really see potential and actualize it. I feel like that's why so many women are drawn to the bad boys. We don't love them because they're bad. We love them because we know they could be good, and we want to help them get there. That's a topic for another time. So basically what I think is that his attitude towards me changed once I finally had broken free of that needy mindset that gripped me for so long. He didn't see me anymore as, oh, she's just a girl that I dated in the past. He kind of saw me in a new way because I had a completely different vibe and energy about me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope you gained something from it. I hope you found it helpful. Obviously, it wasn't an easy story for me to tell, but I feel like it's an important one, and I hope that you were able to relate to it or gain something from it. If so, please give me a like, subscribe to this channel, leave me a comment if you have any questions, any feedback, or even if you want me to make separate videos on any of the topics or any of the relationships that I brought up throughout this video. We brought up a lot. I could definitely go in deeper in so many different directions. So just let me know in the comment section. I read them all. I'm going to be trying to respond to everyone. And thanks for watching, and I will see you guys in the next video.